the desperate man's take. So 20 years, thousands of fathers, false allegations, high conflict custody battle, parental alienation, United States, Canada, Europe, Australia, permanent protective orders overturned, modified. Men starting out in the same place that you're at and getting fair custody or better. So many men go through this and they hear me say this and they think, man, it's just some internet BS or show me some proof. And I want to show you the proof. We're going to get to that. But I want to get to this next because what this actually is probably something different than you think. And I always wanted to be a guy that just helped other men out. I didn't want to be the guy that guaranteed the win and had the group that had all the guys that did impossible things in their custody battles. And the moment I really realized what I was doing has to do with how I started. Because how I started was I just wanted to see my kids. I just wanted to reverse a protective order. I just wanted to flip it on my ex who was screwing me over. And the thing is that your potential for this is so much more than that. See, because when we start out with a desperate man's perspective, which is probably where you're starting out right now, knowing the lies in the system and how screwed up they are, we don't realize the potential of how much we could learn the family court system and get some wins under our belt. And so in 20 years, thousands of cases, thousands of men. What this is about is not just winning in that way. It is winning to get fair custody. It's winning to definitively defend false allegations. It's winning so that our reputation is intact. It's winning that stops parental alienation and it neutralizes narcissistic attacks against our life. It's winning that protects us for the longevity of what it means to be a father. And within all of that, you got to know the process. And so here's my big problem with a lot of this. You probably right now believe that that's not possible with your case. You're going, man, my case is crazy complex. You don't know my ex. These things have happened. Here's the stockpile of everything. And I actually wouldn't have believed it either. But after all that I've experienced, I know that not to be true. There's always a way. And that doesn't mean that I can guarantee anything. That doesn't mean that you won't lose. That doesn't mean that other problems aren't going to come. But we need to come from a solution base, or else we're living the lie of men have to suffer and lose custody of their kids. Okay. So what I want to tell you now is something super important in all of this, because no attorney, no coach, no mentor, nobody who's really in this space or even in self-help in general is going to tell you, but this is part of the difference of why I've gotten the results that I've gotten with men. And the difference is that I'm willing to lose. Okay. That doesn't mean that I plan to lose. That doesn't mean that I want to lose. But what that means is that I will walk with a man to the end. I'll walk when it gets ugly, when it takes longer than anybody thought, when hurdles come in front of us, when the impossible lands on us, when your court case gets screwed, I'm there. My group's there. And I'm not saying that as any sort of sales pitch in any sort of way, but this group that I've run for the last 17, 18 years, this is why it has the largest concentration of men. This is why it's existed for as long as it has. The largest concentration of men who have won in false allegations, parental alienation, Europe, Canada, United States, every state in the United States, Australia, over and over again. And that's not because I can promise certainty. It's because I refuse to abandon my guys. When it's time to go hard, we go hard. And so what I want to talk to you about in this video here is there's 6 big lies that we run into, that dads walk into every time they start down the family court path. And they all sound true. They have a lot of truth in them. But if we buy into them and you already believe these, it's going to wreck your case. This is where I can almost guarantee you are starting, even if you've been in this 7, 8 years, 10 years. Okay. And so what we want to do is we want to fix that. And that's what we're going to do in this video. This is the stuff that I charge for. We actually just got done with a call. There was an expert witness who was on the call, a legal expert that came on for an hour that was breaking down all sorts of different stuff with the guys in the group. And I want to share this with you so that we can prove to you, so that you can at least believe that it is possible to win in a broken system, in the broken system that you're already in. And if you don't trust me yet, totally cool. Give me about 40 more minutes and we'll get moving. Now, real quick, if you're watching this live, we're going to have a free call for this afterwards in about 35 minutes from now. So I got to get through this pretty quick. And in order to get on that free call, you need to be on my email list. If you're watching this on YouTube, if you're watching this on TikTok, there should be a link somewhere, direct.me/Steve Maeda, where you can get into my free community. At 11:45, 50, something like that, there's going to be a link emailed out for that Zoom call. I hope you can be there. Now, if you're watching this on the replay, you want to be on that email list because you'll find out more about the different calls that we have. But I'm going to tell you what every single guy in my paid groups tells me. For the price of 2, 3 average attorney calls, you could get 6 months to a year of support, excellent support from our groups. This is something that you should definitely consider. This is something that you should look towards because it's just going to save you a ton of money. Thousands. When we surveyed our group, it comes into anywhere from $20,000 to $90,000 of almost instant savings. Now, these are complicated cases. We only deal with that, but it is a huge amount of money and will guide you every step of the way. If there's integrity and some sort of bastion of light in this entire industry, this is it. We mean what we say, we follow you to the end, and we get results, and we have the proof. Let's get into this. Lie number 1. I wasted too much money spending anything else is just going to be throwing more money into a broken system. Now, I'm going to tell you this, that doesn't sound like a lie. In fact, there's a lot of truth in that. Maybe it's all true, but where the lie in this happens, in the lie that makes you lose, comes in what's wrapped around that entire belief. Okay, so let's rewind just a little bit. This system is not taking your money because you're stupid. It's not taking your money because you're a bad dad. It's taking your money because there's extreme panic and emergency when we have false allegations, narcissistic abuse, when we have super high conflicts, parental alienation. You're panicked, and there's an entire infrastructure that is ready to take your money, guaranteeing that it is going to save you. And it's not. And here's part of the problem. Because your case, if you're in this high conflict, if there are false allegations, parental alienation, and so on, if there's narcissistic abuse, borderline abuse, any sort of personality disorder or toxic behavior that's attacking you right now, your attorney's going to brush that off. They don't know how to handle it. Judges are not trained to see it. And including even if you have a guardian ad litem that guarantees that they have 40 years of experience. It's actually a true story. 40 years of experience, still could not pick out things that the psych evaluator was able to pick out, thankfully. So this happens all the time, okay? So we have a system that is ready to take your money, is not prepared to represent your specific case. And we'll get into this a little bit later, but it's something like 1 in 1,000 attorneys are actually equipped to understand how to argue these things. In fact, I'll tell you this, with all the clients that I've had, there's 3 firms that get this, man, that get this. Now, there's many experts that get this, but there's 3 firms that have the total package of like thousands of firms that we've worked with, okay? And it is just ready to take you to the cleaners. Now, on top of that, you know it. You're not seeing your kids. You're fighting false allegations. You don't know what to do. You're not sleeping in your house. You're trying to survive, and you're in the middle of crisis, chaos. There's financial hardships. And all this time, you're trying to make strategic decisions. And a lot of times you convince yourself that you can, and you just can't. Nobody can. Nobody does it. Okay. I don't care how skilled you are. Don't even try it. I wouldn't try it. So you hire whatever attorney or law firm that sounds confident. Maybe you get a men's rights attorney, and they usually don't know what they're doing, but I don't know all of them, but that's usually what we hear in our groups. You pay whatever they ask. Okay. You don't know what decisions to make because you trust them and they handle things wrong. Because again, with high conflict, if you watch my many other videos on this, the process is completely different. How you're going to argue a personality disorder is not in any way how you would think. There's a specific formula to it. And that's just the starting place because there's unique aspects to your country, your state, your judge. Okay. And so you do that golden handshake with that attorney, you pay the retainer, it needs to be refilled, you keep moving forward, you don't know what to do, you're asking friends and family. 100,000 bucks goes, maybe it's 500,000 bucks. We hear these stories over and over again, and you end up in the exact same place. Well, actually, let me rephrase that. You end up in a place worse than where you started. Over and over again, this happens. We're not going to deny that, right? And so here's the part which people don't tell you and people don't teach you. The money isn't the only part of that problem. It's the entire infrastructure. Okay. So if we back up, we go, okay, we're panicked. There's a system that's ready to take our money, but believe it or not, there's more. Because how we're going to solve this is you need to start unifying. You need to start being around other men. Now, last night on our live stream, there was on our free call, actually, there was a lady who clearly knew a lot. There were a couple guys who knew a lot, all part of the free community, And they were able to come together and say, hey, we should talk. They lived in the same country, had a lot of the same situation. Okay, when you get 10 to 20 dads around you who've been exactly what you've been through, they're pro se dads, maybe they had high profile attorneys. When you get that, you start understanding what motions to file, you understand what not to react to, what to react to. Sometimes you're in such a chaotic state, you just need to emotionally dump. When you have access to legal experts, GALs, people who fly around the world to talk about parental alienation as a witness who works in pivotal cases of where the laws are starting to change around that, you can start asking questions towards this. This is huge. This is going to save you so much time, so much money. And within all of this, you have a support system 24/7, all these different things. It changes the game plan. Because I'm going to come back to this. We're going to talk a lot about pro se. We're going to talk a lot about hiring an attorney. I always think it's best for you to start out with an attorney, even though we have tons and tons of pro se dads that start out that way. It is possible, but it's better to get an introduction to family court with an attorney because the biggest tragedies always start in the first couple of hearings, and it's good to have somebody holding your hand. So your job then is to start understanding the system, get around people who can check you, who can understand where you're at, what moves you should make, how to interview an attorney, how to vet attorneys, how to switch attorneys if you need to, and how to properly communicate with your attorney, because you never want an attorney, judge, guardian ad litem, CPS work. You never want any of these people in the system to be your enemy. Even if they do you wrong, you're almost so powerless in how you're starting out. You have to move forward. So there's a little bit more on this one, but I want to go back to this lie. I am wasting tons of money in family court. Yes. But the lie is telling you that if you spend money, if you move forward, you're going to get screwed because history has shown that to you. But I'm going to tell you right now, if you have false allegations, I would highly, highly, highly recommend you work with a GAL, you work with a family therapist, you work with third parties, amicus attorneys, whatever it is. You need that to argue your case, pro se or not. That's going to cost you money. I don't care if it's part of the system. Attorneys can also be necessary to consult with, talk with, or represent you, whatever it is. But it's your job to learn how nasty this system is. It is your job to educate yourself on that. And it's your job to get out of your panic, your impulsivity, to where you are setting yourself up to get screwed. We all started there. You're not a bad dad for starting there. You're not a bad dad for getting screwed in any of this. But you do have to get out of it. It is your responsibility to get out of the victimhood that you're in. Okay? I'm going to tell you this, that what is so good about my group is that we'll teach you all this stuff. We put up videos, you can watch them. Even there's tons of free videos on how to interview an attorney. Josh Davis, the legal assistant in our group, wrote a book on how to find a family law attorney. There's so much information that we have out there for you. But what I know from working with men is you got to work through it. You need that action. You need somebody guiding you through it. You need the support, because the rug gets pulled out from under you all the time in this. With me, I know what my product is, offer a 30-day money-back guarantee. I'm not trying to sell you with that, but I'm telling you that this is what we stand by. And I wish guardian ad litems, attorneys, everybody else, most people selling advice in this space would do, but they don't do that. And there's a reason why I have the group that I have. So that lie is not just that this court system is going to take your money. Of course it's going to. But you need to get out of the panic. You need to realize that it's not an excuse to sit down and lose and remain a victim. And you need to start organizing yourself in very, very specific ways that I just listed on how to get yourself out of this. Let's move to lie number 2. And as we do that, I'm going to switch to the other live stream here. Bear with me one moment, because TikTok has been abandoned from this. So let me start that up for these guys, because they need to be on that free call as well. We're going. Lie number 2 is the system is so corrupt that nothing will matter, that I have to be screwed. So as a father, there's nothing I can do, because the judge, the attorneys, everybody's there to rob you. Everybody is there to get rich, and I'm paying for it. And my lying, narcissistic ex, who's alienating the kids from me, has no consequence. I have to pay her court fees. So I want to tell you something here. The system, it's corrupt. I'm not going to go against you on that one. Judges can very easily not care. Attorneys, they know everybody. They know the GAL, they know the evaluator, everybody's getting paid. Everybody gets paid even when you lose. CPS workers ignore evidence, and courts create delays. Paperwork gets lost. A father gets dismissed, and your relationship gets burned. Okay, that's real, totally real. For 20 years, I've watched that in multiple countries, multiple states. It is consistent. And I don't want to insult you by pretending that that doesn't happen. So once again, how is this a lie? And see, for 20 years, men have also won in that system every day. Okay? The lie is that because the system is corrupt, you need to give up and you cannot win. The truth is, the system's corrupt. You can win, and it's a lot harder than you expect, and everything has to be right. Okay? This is not going to change a system immediately. We're not going to change the laws in the next 6 months. Let's hope we do. We're not going to revolutionize things. We're not going to get a petition signed and moved through legislature in a short amount of time, which is what you need to start seeing your kids. So we have to start acting fast. We have to act fast with where we're at in a system that is not going to favor men. It's going to buy into false allegations immediately. It's going to almost support parental alienation because it doesn't recognize it. And it's also going to be a playground for somebody with a personality disorder like narcissistic personality disorder or borderline. It's going to empower all of that. So here's the part that you don't want to hear living through this. Your reaction to the corruption is what's going to damage your case most. You might be thinking, how does this happen? A judge is not doing their job, and my reaction is what I need to be responsible for. I know it shouldn't be the case, but this is what plays out. This is what plays out. So there's actually 3 reactions. And we're going to talk about it because they're really important, because I can almost guarantee that they just make sense to you. Okay? The first reaction is you get into a men's rights group. You get into support. You go on YouTube, TikTok, you find some spaces, Reddit, whatever. And that men's rights group confirms that the system is BS, right? It's hopeless. You stop fighting. And, you know, where there's misery, there's company. But you're not tactically looking at fighting for your kids. And the excuse there is you can't win. And then there's just limitless amounts of examples of how the system has failed men. And it's exactly how it's failing you. And before any of those men dig deep to find solutions, they just keep going and saying that it's impossible. Okay, and here's what I say to this, right? Probably millions of men have been screwed in ways that every guy in my group has won. In fact, most of the guys in my group start off losing, and then we flip it and find out a way to win. Okay, this is my story in this. That's exactly what happened. So when we look at whatever propaganda around this, it's true. It's true. But if it's always true, how do you win once? And then the argument is that, well, it's a one-off. Okay, it's an outlier. You got lucky. But then when we do it again and again and again, and then when lawyers start hiring me and my group to find out how to win their case, you start going, well, wait a minute, there's something special here. And then when law firms start hiring guys who win cases pro se in my groups to consult with them, which regularly happens in my group, it's like, man, this is kind of crazy. And then when other people, like earlier tonight, we had expert witness on, they seek our group out when they hear about it and they go, what? I want to see this. And it starts to snowball with more and more people. This is something where I have to say, yeah, there is a lot of corruption, but you can clearly win. And we do it consistently. And we also lose, but you can clearly win. Let's go into the second reaction of what you think when you get screwed by the system. Okay. Second one is you swear on your kids' lives that you're going to change the system. You're going to swear, man, you tell me, and I've had some like 5,000 men swear to me that they're going to be the guy that does this. They're going to challenge the Constitution. They're going to reform family law. And they're certain. It's almost insulting for me to say, well, hey, let's focus on your case. No, I'm going to do this. And I'm going to do it for all the guys. And man, I'm going to help you out when this happens. And I'm just going to be real with you. That's going to distract you from your case. It always does. Okay. I want you to do those things, but do it after you win. And I know one person who's done that. And there could be more that have actually changed the laws. I know one person out of thousands. Now, I met him later and he contacted me, Robert Garza, you probably know him. And what he says is he had to win his case first. And there were baby steps. There were things that he fought really hard for. There were turns of luck. I don't want to at all diminish what he's done. It's insane. But these are the things that he put forward with it. And if that guy's saying that, maybe somebody should follow in his exact footsteps instead of just cowboying it John Wayne style and saying that you're going to do it because you accomplished some things before in your life, which are probably very legitimate, but maybe not that. The third reaction is men become obsessed with recusals, constitutional amendments, and procedural challenges. They spend 6 months, 2 years, whatever it is, ignoring their case and focusing on how they get their judge removed, how they're going to go to the state Supreme Court, and all these things, which are good. I want you to win these things. I just know that that's usually a bypass for not understanding what you need to do in front of you. Okay, so let's go back to this. Where's the lie? Family court is corrupt, but you seek out some men's groups, you get bad information, you get obsessed with constitutional law, you think you're going to change the system. You want to start a petition. You get mad at everybody who doesn't sign it. And all of that is so much easier to do, so much easier when you don't understand how to file something, when you know you're going to walk into family court and lose, when you can't face your judge, when the narcissistic attacks can't be fought. And you've watched a bunch of propaganda saying it's impossible because you don't properly know how to use the structure of the system. You don't understand that third parties can be used. You're afraid because you read online too many times or had a lawyer that did not understand how to fight high conflict, saying that GALs could be turned against you, or amicus attorneys, or psychological evaluators. And you need to step forward with those things, especially if you have false allegations. There was a gentleman on our call tonight, and he was talking to somebody who is an expert witness with guardian ad litem, psychological evaluations, all these different things, allowed to do these evaluations. And he's going into that tomorrow, and it's terrifying. It's horrible. I would much rather tell you that my petition is going to do something, even though it's really going to do nothing, or go on Reddit and talk about how screwed up the system. I would much rather do that if I were in his shoes. But that dude is doing what guys do in our group. He is doing the heroic thing, walking into something extremely, extremely difficult. And actually, knock on wood, if I can find it here, that guy is setting, that guy has a strong, strong case. It's almost as strong as you can get. So let's go back to this, man. We always say we're logical. We always say we're tough. We always say that we're the smartest guys in the room. And we're going to go in, we're going to drain the swamp. We're going to get at the root. We're going to go to the Supreme Court of the state of whatever it is. And we're going to change that law. And really what that is a bypass. Are you winning your case? Are you facing the things that are impossible? Are you facing the things that guys in our group will face? That hard stuff that you could be walking into a loss every time. And that's a sad thing. That is the sad thing. Think about this. How did I form this group? What did I say in the beginning of this? We don't quit. We go through to the end. We're not afraid of losing. That means we will lose. That means we have lost. Doesn't mean we want to lose. Doesn't mean we're guaranteed to lose, but losses are going to happen. That's how we learn. And the more that we have people saying it's impossible, the more we have to do that. Because we can't communicate together, our hive mind gets broken up. If we had 100 groups like mine, that would help a lot. We'd have more guys winning custody from false allegations. Let's hope we'd change the laws. In that sense, it could, because it would influence judges and more cases and all sort of different stuff. That would do it, but we don't. Get off the trash. Get off of that narrative. Get off of that lie. It is ruining your case. Lie number 3. Everyone says they will help you and they betray you. Now, let's move into this. When most men start out in this, they're shocked. You're leaning on your friends, your family. They say, I don't want to take sides. I'm doing this. And, go with the spiritual decision of the high road. But not only do they not fully support you, and at first you're kind of like, well, I get it. They're trying to be mature. But they don't have your backs in the way that you need it right now. But it's even worse because it moves into the entire industry. Attorneys will take $50K from you easy, leave you worse off than before. Coaches, people giving you advice, give you generic things, but when it stops working, they cut you. When it gets to within the system, CPS workers, GALs, they'll tell you that, there's no danger here. But when it comes to their report, there is. Super, super common. Everybody in this system is getting paid, whether you win or lose, and out of your pocketbook. Okay? You're the only one that doesn't have a say. And when it comes to friends, family, spiritual communities, the things that you're supposed to lean on, you're wiped, man. High road, you're being a toxic male, you're being too angry. Well, wait a minute. We want men to feel, but when a man's feeling is actually legitimate anger, everybody's like, hey, whoa. Be careful. That's dangerous. Maybe you're a predator. You're like, how did this jump from anger to a sexual predator or something. Like, it's just so insane what men go through. So here's the big thing that we do different. And this is what you need to understand to unwind this toxic thinking, to unwind this lie. So I'm not going to tell you that this is about trust or anything like that, because everybody who screwed you over is telling you that. You need to be around people that don't have an exit. You need to build a team that does not do that. And I know you're trying to, I know you expect it, I know you want it, but it's not going to come in the Hallmark, loyalty, whatever playbook of how you make friends and impress people and all that sort of stuff. Okay? One of the things about me when I work with somebody is I don't have an exit. Your attorney stops working with you when the retainer runs out. When you're late on payments, they won't show up to court. Coaches move on when you're not getting the results they want. You can't do the cool video testimonial after the super hyped workshop. Programs, courses, they give you videos, Facebook groups, something like that. And they're like, good luck, man. So I follow men to jail. I follow men to their graves. I did not set out to be that guy. I didn't even want to be that guy. When these things started happening, I didn't want to talk about it because it's your clients or people around you are having negative experiences. But when I started to realize that other coaches, other people in this space, even other attorneys, they didn't do that. Even many, many therapists involved who swear by that, they wouldn't do that. I thought, why isn't that happening? And I'm not asking you or saying to you that you have to find somebody like that. But I remember when one of my clients, he went to prison, I believe falsely. We've gone to great lengths with this case, and therapists would not get on calls with them. Like, I would have to pay for my calls and register and put in my name and my ID. And a therapist could actually get free calls with them, get video chats. They wouldn't show up. Why? And they have their own personal reasons, but I just couldn't believe how hard that was. And I would get flack from people saying, well, leave this to the pros. He needs to be working with them. Nobody would work with him. And this is true for so many different aspects. When you're the guy and you're entering into this and you go to your pastor, you go to your imam, you go to somebody who's supposed to be the person to give you advice, like, well, once you stop being angry, I can talk to you. You need to walk the high road. I have to have boundaries in this. And a man is left out to dry. And so when I saw this pattern over and over again, okay, which is, I'm going to step forward. I'm going to ask for help. I'm going to share who I am. I'm like, hey, I need some help. And I get shut down. This ties into the lie that men believe that helps them lose. Because what's the result of this? What's the result when we're falling apart? What's the result when we can't see our kids? What's the result when we're being financially decimated over and over in this? What's the result when we truly are being attacked by our ex? She is out to totally get us, destroy us. If we would unalive ourselves, it would be a good day for her. Perhaps she even tells you that. Those are the kinds of messages I got. I got those in emails. Judges didn't even care. When nobody will talk to me about those things, I isolate. The same culture which says toxic masculinity comes out from men not being able to emote. Well, I work in a system that's not just in custody. I work in a community that deals with addicts, people with PTSD, men with issues around sex, men who've been abused, and of course, the men who are in high conflict custody battles. They're all trying to emote, and there's a door shut on them. So that same culture which says that that's going to create toxic masculinity, which it creates something bad, I'll tell you, because I deal with it every day, tells my clients to shut up. And when the yoga doesn't work, it shuts them down. Or when they're taught to do the breathing exercise, which is supposed to revolutionize something so everything works. And I'm for these. Like, actually, we did those on our call tonight. Those are great. But when a man does that, and he fails over and over again, gets humiliated by a system, and he had to lower himself to do this weird thing he didn't understand and not even like, and it didn't speak to him, he disappears more. So we have not only an entire system, an entire culture, an entire infrastructure that is supposed to help men on the legal side, on the therapeutic side, on the friendship side, on the spiritual side, on the philosophical side, that fails him. Why would a man want to step forward? So when I talk to men in these situations, they don't want, why would I want to talk to you, Steve? Why would I want to open up to your group? I don't need your group. I don't need therapy. I need the freaking answer. Give me the answer. And we'll get to this a little bit later, but that is going to unwind his case. That is going to ruin him in front of a judge. That is going to screw him with expert witnesses that he needs to be working with. Okay. So, in all of this, I just want to say here that I'm 100% pro attorney. As I talked about a little bit earlier, and I believe the first live, I think that our system is totally screwed up. It's corrupt, and every attorney will take your money. And there's no shortage of examples of that. And if you don't know what you're doing, that's most likely what's going to happen to you. But the greatest mistakes that happen in high conflict custody battles with narcissistic abuse, with parental alienation, false allegations are going to happen in your first couple of hearings. And if you go in there blind, you're going to get blindsided even more. So your job then is to hire an attorney, learn to vet attorneys that understand how to confidently argue false allegations, or maybe not narcissistic abuse just yet, because that needs to be proven in a different way, or parental alienation is a little bit longer of a road. But you need somebody to help you through the system there. Now, like I said, we have a group that has a ton of pro se dads that even start out that way. But if you have the option to enter into family court, mediation, interviews with GALs, this sort of thing, as well as going to your first couple of hearings in front of a judge or a magistrate, you are better off learning or having your hand held from an attorney and then learning the due diligence to understand what's going on with attorneys. There's so many ways where you get blindsided and betrayed by this entire system, but that doesn't mean that you just go with the opposite of that pain. They're not trustworthy, so screw them. They're not trustworthy, so I need to understand how this all works so I can take very carefully the right steps forward, because I am a man in a corrupt system and I have super high conflict and it doesn't know how to see it. And I'm going to need to teach the courts what is actually going on here. So I need to walk really, really carefully. I know that's bad news for you, but that's the situation you're in. At least that's how we do it. Maybe there's a better way, but I haven't really seen anybody talk about it. All right. Line number 4, if I do anything, it's going to be worse. And let's just be real here. Every time you move forward in a custody battle where you're being attacked by a narcissist, there's false allegations, you can't see your kids, you're being alienated, months and months go by with that. Every time you move forward, your whole family law experience gets worse. Why should I try? And here's where the lie comes into play. This is once again a reason to give up. I'm going to tell you this. If you're thinking this, if this is what you're thinking right now, I want to be real with you. You're actually on the path that every guy in my group who is one is on. The problem is you got to stay on that path. Okay. And here's one of the things that nobody talks about enough. Custody breaks men in ways where nothing else does. Now, I don't want to disrespect male pain because I think it's disrespected enough. And my whole life and career has been obsessed with all the male pain that has been ignored. But I've worked with addicts more than in child custody. I've worked with vets with PTSD, addict-related PTSD. I've sat through a lot of the hardest things that men go through. Abuse that's been ignored, incest that's denied, all sorts of horrible things. Okay? And I respect all of those people, but custody is different. And there's a couple of reasons of why. So custody is long term. Custody, if you do anything that is instinctual in it, protect your kids, fight for your marriage, if that's part of it, if you're getting a divorce, uh, assert yourself as a man, stand up for justice. This is all going to work against you. These things you cannot do. So you have to walk through this trauma while you're being abused, not just by your narcissistic ex or your borderline ex, but by this new thing, a system that is part of your government that you're supposed to believe in. Your identity of a father is taken away. You're paying for it. You have to work harder. Your finances are getting screwed. Your reputation's getting screwed. Perhaps your civil liberties. Maybe you go to jail, like I did. Okay. All these things are compromised, and it's over a long period of time. Your social circles usually turn against you. If we're talking about false allegations, you lose all your friends. It's a horrible thing. Okay. People see you as one of the worst things in our culture, some form of an abuser to children, your own children. And then your own children, after a month or 2 months of not seeing you, hate you. This is hard. Okay. What an addict goes through is horrible. What a vet goes through, there's so much wrong with it, of how they're ignored. What people who are abused as children and then denied by their therapist that this abuse is possible, this is horrible, horrible. But there's something unique about custody where it is long. And it does not stop, and it hits at all angles. So here's something I'm going to say, whether you agree with me or not on this. The trauma in this is real. Men disassociate. They swing from rage to numbness, back, sadness. They want forgiveness. There's men who are in jail facing horrible criminal charges, and they're talking about how if they could just forgive their lying ex who made up the false allegations that have them end up in there, that later on they prove were false and she has no consequences. They're talking about forgiveness in that moment. You swing all over the place. Okay. And a lot of men think they can handle it because they've handled hard things, especially if you've been at war or you've been in something like 12-step recovery and you've had a lot of trauma through addiction or whatever your situation is. It's going to be different. You're going to be hit at a different angle. It's not because you're weak. The idea that you're not going to be shocked by your kids being taken away from you, that you're not able to fight for them, you can have all sorts of things. You can freeze. You can give up. You can implode. You could be thinking things that you've never thought you'd think before, which might be unaliving yourself and so on. This is the norm of your starting place, but it is also extremely dangerous and you need to get help. So we enter into this spot when it comes to, finding a solution. How do we win in court? How do we mentally heal? How do we get better as men? How do we become fathers? How do we fix our kids from being screwed up? And why try? Because every time we move forward, we get screwed. We get screwed. We're punished for our greatest qualities. So when it comes to filing motions, when it comes to hiring attorneys, when it comes to even showing up for our court dates, we have no motivation. We can forget. This is a big thing with PTSD. It can slip from our minds. We need to check all that. We need to know it's coming. We need to get around people that can handle this. We need to understand that we do not have time to slouch. We need to be on this 5 to 7 days a week, focused for a period of time, at least one period of time each of those days. We'll give you 5. It can be hard. But as guys in our groups will tell you, it gets to 7 and 60 hours a week pretty quick of work and your case. Okay. Your court case needs to be tight. Your filings need to be tight. Your evaluations, your interviews, all of it needs to be tight. You don't have room for error, but you have a real issue. If you cannot step forward with that and you have a deadline, it is guaranteed it will get worse, oftentimes tragically worse. And it's not because you're cursed. That's not because the courts hate you. That's because you are unable to act in a highly traumatic situation and nobody's helping you. So here's one of the things. I'm not going to tell you that in any way, shape, or form you can white knuckle this. Okay, you can't just push through it. You can't shut it out. You can't be the I beat PTSD guy. You can't just do jujitsu or fire guns or do some alpha thing. It's not going to work. Okay, we watch men do this over and over again, and they tell me how awesome they are, and they fail. And I watch them fail. These are the guys that will not listen to me. It's horrible. It's horrible. Do not hire me if you're trying to hold on to that and you're going to spend hours convincing me of that, because I'll just let you do it. All right. Okay. So in our groups, we have therapists. In our groups, we have GALs and expert witnesses talk to you who also understand the therapy, but are legal experts and that work with international cases on people in your exact situation. These people understand men. They understand the male process. And probably more important than that, because although those things are great highlights that, once again, sadly, I don't see other people doing, and these people came to me. If you want to help men in this, like, organize this, do it. It's possible, right? But the men, the other men in the groups who are like you, who've gone through that pain, a guy who just won sole custody, just won 2 weeks prior to that, heartbroken, in pain, devastated, because trials are insane. They're crazy. And you need to be able to hold that line. I was actually just talking to a lawyer today about issues that constantly happen within the group. True story. Guys will set up their case. They work their case, work their case, work their case. They come to the group, they tell me about it, and they have a tight case, but they're missing something. They're missing, and here's usually what it is. They're trying to show some sort of personality disorder issue working to abuse, or that causes abuse in the child, and they don't have the right third party set up in that. You can see it just like that. Just like that. Most attorneys do not know how to do this, and I don't know why. And false allegation, parental alienation, personality disorders, you got to have them. Okay, they can work against you. And I was talking to this attorney today because the guy came to me, he didn't have these things set up, confident as all hell, hires me, we got a couple weeks, unwilling to do that because of the advice from all the BS information out there. And it didn't move forward in the way that he wanted. I'll tell you that. And I was talking to the attorney today. I was like, I knew this. You know, we always hope for the best. There were a lot of great things about his case, but the things which are the closest thing we can get to a guarantee in a specific thing, people are unwilling to do. Now, the reason why I bring that up is because you need to understand when you're working through your case, there's times to change, there's times to go through the therapeutic process, and it's a balance. 2 weeks before your hearing, maybe a week before your hearing, man, you can't make changes. You can, but you need to be tough there. You need to be strong because you need to build your confidence. You need to have your whole therapeutic support team be able to back that. You need to understand that after that, in family court, it's very hard to fix mistakes, but we want to try when we can. You then also need that therapeutic backing for that as well. You got to have it. You've got to have it. And so when we get to the lie about family court, when we get to what men go through in this, is we need to understand that the therapeutic process to this is for real. It goes hand in hand with the legal process. We're not here to try and make you sing Kumbaya or whatever it is. We're here to balance an extremely difficult thing that needs 100% of your focus, or you are going to fail, and fail tragically. Now, I just realized that the Zoom call email has gone out, and I need to start that call. So let me start that, and let me finish this up. I'm sorry, guys, who are watching this, but there's people who are, oh man, on this thing, and I screwed it up. Hold on, hold on. I have to switch Zoom accounts. And we got 2 more after this. And I need to mute my speakers. Oh my God. Are you serious? Hey, people watching on the live stream, I'm going to re-email out the Zoom link because apparently it is not right, which is confusing me at the moment. Let me try this one more time. One more time. Well, screw it. We're going to send out a brand new Zoom link for you guys. I deeply apologize for this. But hey, it's worth it. Because hey, if you were on the call last night, that was the best. That was the good stuff. You guys are all like, man, get the technical stuff right. I'm trying. It was funny too, because I watched part of last night's replay and I was like, man, the screw ups for the, or these little things, they bother me so much. I'm like, hold on, guys. And when I'm rewatching, I'm like, why don't I just fix it? Everybody understands. I think you understand, right? Okay, let me make sure this works. And it does. So we can get back to these last few things and then we'll do it. And I'll send out the link again. For you guys who want to be on the link, you have to be on the email list. And if you're not, too bad. We're going to do another free call on Sunday night. So be there for that. At least I think I will. I'm pretty burnt out. I'm making mistakes. But let's get back to this. We still have 2 more to go, and they're pretty important. Line number 5, when it comes to men going through high conflict custody battles, is that it's too complicated, and they don't know where to start. They don't know what to do. Now, just like we said before, there's so much betrayal. There's a whole system which is eating you alive. Everything is really just screwing you in so many ways. It's pretty easy to get overwhelmed. And what I want to talk to you about is that when we're a dad, we've been screwed over by the system. We're being forced to go in pro se, and we see this wall in front of us, and we know about the corruption. It's pretty easy to give up. And this is not your reason to give up. This is part of the lie. Now, I'm going to tell you right now, there's a ton of misinformation out there on lawyers, on how to win, on the best ways to do false allegations or whatever it is. And you want to pick these directions. And this is one of the tricky things within family court, wherever you're at. Okay. False allegations, parental alienation, bad lawyer. You got to switch lawyers. You got to re-interview. You're about to interview with a CPS worker or a GAL. And you got to kind of pick a direction and go for each and every single one of those. And if you have somebody that understands the entire strategy, those directions should tie into each other. Meaning, how you talk, if CPS is involved, you're probably going to have a GAL if you get past the CPS worker. if you beat the protective order. And you probably need one. So you want to be able to talk to the GAL so that you can later on, or I'm sorry, talk to the CPS worker so you can later on talk to a GAL custody evaluator, something like this. You also need to understand how to talk to attorneys in this. And so this gets crazy. Or if you're pro se, judges, whatever the situation is, or replying to opposing counsel. This is obviously something that's difficult. And there's tons of people telling you how to act in each one of those things. But I'm going to tell you, there is actually good information out there. And some of the places where we get the most amount of information from is going to be from attorneys that actually know how to do this, different experts that are around the country that are usually all spread out on what to do better. And hopefully those experts coming on the paid tiers of our calls and so on. We just had one on tonight of how we maneuver around this. This is all extremely complicated. And of all the dads in the 20 years of me teaching, of the 17 years of having my group, the dads that have won the most stellar cases are the dads that had no legal skills. And I really want that to sink in. So the dad who gets hired by really, really high-line attorneys to consult because of the case that he won was not a legal guy to begin with. He is now. This was somebody who had no skills in this that learned that. When I bring this up, his story to other lawyers, in the fact that he ended up winning pro se and changing laws in his state and county that are kind of impossible. It's one of the things that everybody guarantees that they can do. This is a guy that came out of nowhere, never went to school for it, never did any of these things. Okay, so I want to actually back up a little bit here, is that this is overwhelming, and it's overwhelming so much to the point that in order to be a lawyer or a judge, or at least you would think they would do this, or they're supposed to do this, they have to study for years in order to just sign a piece of paper or represent you. This is the idea, at least. I get it. They can make all these catastrophic mistakes. But with your case, this is what you have to determine. However complicated it is, we have to pick a direction and go. And that direction needs to have a strategy in it. Meaning that in every family court system, Australia, Canada, UK, Scotland, all over Europe, United States, Mexico, all these different places where we have cases, there's many moving parts. You need to know what those moving parts are. Okay? And there's a couple variables to that, and you got to pick one and go with it. It's not just, I'm going to talk to the GAL. It's that you need to understand how that's going to play into the other things. And is there an order to it? That's difficult. But when you start to talk to men who've done this, who, they may have been a pizza delivery driver that could be intelligent, but they don't need to have those skills to have that job, and that guy can do it, you can do it. Okay? It's just everything in family court is going to be against your instinct, totally weird, unfair, corrupt, bizarre, and it's up to you. It's up to you to do it. This is one of the hardest things. Nobody has a map for this because oftentimes there is no map for it. What you're arguing, especially if you're arguing parental alienation, if you're arguing false allegations, okay, if there's narcissistic abuse and nobody's caring, your judge is not used to dealing with this. And I can almost guarantee your attorney is not used to dealing with this. Like I said earlier, in the thousands of cases that we've worked, there's 3 law firms that I can think of that are made for this. That's a lot of lawyers hired that didn't have the confidence to organize a complicated case of this common thing that everybody's going through. Okay? So part of the solution to all of this that you may not want to hear in all of it, the bad news, so to speak, is I watch 2 things happen when men hit this wall. When they believe that it's too overwhelming and they just can't do it. They go into full paralysis, okay? And we've already talked about that a little bit with the mental health aspects of it. But the second is actually more dangerous. When things become so overwhelming, we create a man that says, I'm too smart, I'm super accomplished, I've handled hard things. I don't need your system. I need you to do how I'm coached best because I understand this. I've handled this, this, and that. I don't want to be on your therapy calls. I don't want to talk to the GAL person that you got. I don't want to talk to the expert. I want the person that does this. Okay. And I understand where that guy comes from because that usually comes from a really stand up guy. That guy is really accomplished, usually an entrepreneur, somebody who's made hard decisions. They've done things that are heroic in other areas of their lives. They did something, whether it was educational or physical, a huge life accomplishment, but family law isn't going to reward any of those things. Okay. And I'm going to tell you directly that you're going to be screwed if you're thinking that. I'm too smart. I've accomplished a bunch of things. I'm great. Just show me what works. Good luck. Okay. And here's why I'm going to say that. You're probably going to get some wins and you're going to celebrate it. But every pivotal point in family court is going to need you to lower that. So there's going to be a huge pivotal point that comes in your case where the guardian ad litem's in front of you, a judge is in front of you, lawyers are negotiating, and you won't be able to see the strategy because you only see your strategy. Here's also what happens with the guy that knows too much, that's super smart. He goes in a direction that is more about his thinking than what has worked before in family court. So he's going to look at case law, but he's not going to know how to present that in front of a judge. He's going to look at everything through AI and whatever Gemini told him or these different LLMs have told him. And he's going to be so confident that he's right that he's going to educate the judge. And this is tricky because if you've listened to my stuff, if you're in parental alienation, you're going to have to educate your judge, but not in the way that you're thinking, not in the way that you're telling them and taking them to school and belittling them and all that sort of stuff. You're going to have to educate your judge in the way of being able to take them through psychological abuse happening rather than redefining what parental alienation is or redefining how they should see what narcissistic personality disorder is. You are going to have to walk them through something which is totally different. And the guy that thinks he knows too much is going to screw up those situations and make it impossible for his case to be heard. And then he gets to join the men's rights group that we talked about in the first element of the lie and say how corrupt the system is because the judge didn't do their job. And he's right. But the job that he needs to learn from experience that has happened before him, that I am telling you that even when these guys come on my calls and they talk to the guys who've done this and they show them their case and they show that a protective order was overturned, a permanent one, that this never happens. This never happens. They'll say, yeah, but your case is different because I want to think in my direction. So all the guys that guarantee to me that they're too smart, they only follow logic and they're disciplined in these ways, turn down the best proof that one has worked in my groups with their pretty much exact same problem, even though they want to be terminally unique. And the best proof that has worked to prove that they could be innocent in court. That's insane. So we don't want to do that. Overwhelm makes people quit or makes people arrogant. And I'll tell you this, man. Before I ever had to watch just tons and tons of men lose and get screwed in family court, I never did this. Or at least it's been so long that I have. It's not something that is there within me. I'm super humble. And I'll tell you right now, stuff comes up in cases. Stuff is going to come up in my case. And what do? I do the same thing that I tell everybody in my groups do. I reach out for help. I pick a direction with one person, I follow that person, and I move forward strategically. And when it's time to breathe, I can relax and strategize. In fact, I'll tell you exactly what we do. If you were to come to my group right now and you have this, all right, what's the first thing that we're going to do? First thing is every man that comes into my group, they have an emergency. We're going to work to put out the fire. You know, if they have a court hearing in 2 days, that's pretty urgent. Okay, hopefully it's more like 30 days, but sometimes we don't get that. We're going to try and put out that fire as best as we can. That takes a lot of reaction. There's a lot of emotion. There's a lot of volatility in that. That's where the most amount of mistakes get made, but we're pretty clear in describing that as that moves forward. But the second thing that we're going to do after we put out the fires is we're going to try and make it manageable. This doesn't mean we solve it. This doesn't mean we win it. We make your case manageable. Why does your case need to be manageable? Because it needs to be communicated to judges. It needs to be communicated to third parties. It needs to be communicated to other lawyers. It needs to be communicated to other people in the group who could help you need to be able to understand that there needs to be some sort of unification. And you need to start managing it in a way that the court can communicate with you on it. A judge needs different things than a custody evaluator, than a forensic psych evaluator. And you need to be able to have stuff centralized so it can communicate in that way. When you come back to the group and you want to refresh us, you know, because there's 20 other guys that may not have heard your story, you need to be able to talk about it. The third thing that's going to happen is once there's manageability in your case, you need to build legal structure. And this is the expert witnesses, the therapists, all the stuff, all the people that understand the law. If you need new lawyers, you need to understand that. What kind of lawyer do you need? Okay, so men come to us in emergencies, but you put the fire out, you build it so there's manageability so it can communicate on all levels, and you put it in a legal structure. And you need to understand that legal structure. It is not just watching, you know, some videos, some Google Gemini, some ChatGPT stuff. It is not just that. You need to start understanding the court. Last night, a gentleman asked, because in Canada they have rotating judges. This happens. This is horrible. You can't study your judge. This is something that you can do in most other systems. Or I believe it's in Scotland. You can't. You cannot watch judges. You can't have any access to it. So you want to study your court. How do you best do that? And it's tough. It is tough. Like I said, we got guys walking into the impossible over and over again. And that's part of it. That's what we got to do. So where do you need to start? Where do you need to start? When it's too overwhelming and you can't think? Get the fires out. Always move towards management. Study legal structure. And man, ask for some help. All right. The last lie that men go through where they sabotage and completely destroy their cases is they don't think they can do it. They got to give up. I got nothing left. Why am I going to do this? I need to walk away from my kids. I need to move to Mexico and start over. And I'm going to tell you right now, a lot of people hate on this. A lot of people have heroic stories of what men are supposed to do in this. They talk about fighting for their kids, or I get these comments of men saying, well, the first mistake is you got divorced. You don't understand whatever, you know, Christian value or something like that. I'm going to tell you this, man. I know a lot of men who have suffered. I know a lot of dads that I will respect and be in awe of because they pulled off some dad stuff that I am amazed at. They love their kids. They have integrity. And every single one of them fought that. Men have tragedies in our culture, and it's not due to a lack of character. And so when you're thinking, I can't do it, when you're thinking, I have to give up, when you're thinking, I'm going to move away and start over and not see my kids, these are things that I was faced with. And the best masculinity had to tell me. Yeah, I've done this for 20 years, spoke internationally, quit in 2016. I knew everybody at that time. Now I don't know as many people, and that's good. I know more legal people. That's better. They'll get you out of the trouble. But the best people had for me was tough it out. You got to move forward. But nobody knew that pain. And what that tells me, because this pain has been happening for a long time, parental alienation, losing your kids, falsely accused, ending up in jail, being called a sex offender, being called a child abuser, and it's a lie, has been happening for a long time. That men before me, because I had access to a lot of help. They were just there to rot away. And you see it across the board. You hear me talk about this a lot. You see it with vets, you see it with addicts, you see it with abuse, you see it with male loneliness. Every aspect of male nature is shunned in our culture. And I don't mean that in a political way. I mean that in the reality, and that I seek solutions. I will tell you that if you buy into that being a political movement, you're failing men. Yeah, if you can change the laws, great, but hurry up and do that. Instead, what you build is false superheroes who have the look and the whatever, which is the lie. Some of the vets I know that are the most heroic people, that have the most amount of integrity, that went on to be fathers, that whose lives were ruined because the government didn't help them. They couldn't get the proper disability because they didn't know how to fill out the paperwork, and now it's harder, even though they clearly should get it. And there's people that dodged or got dishonorably discharged, I know, that are vets that have 100% disability. That's insane. How does that happen? And some of these guys are some of the best fathers. And they have to listen to people saying that their problems that they have post-war are because they didn't lift enough weights or do enough badass shit. And I've seen these guys do dad stuff that's beyond. They're invisible. So I'm telling you, you're not invisible. It's okay to think of all the things you're thinking. Do not take your life. Do not do something that is a rebellious act to say F it and take out your anger on the world or society. I don't want you to do that. But I know what it's like to think those things. I know what it's like to sit with men in those things. When I said one of the differences with me, which I don't understand why, this makes me angry because it is not special about me. I shouldn't be talking about this. I hate the fact that I've sat with people and I've gotten their last words. I hate the fact that I have suicide notes from people. Some of them, thankfully, are still alive. I hate that. But I don't know why people say they help men in these situations and they don't understand that. You know, one of the things that I really enjoy working with some of the expert witnesses that come on and interact on our calls, the lady who was on tonight, one of the instantly is one of the first things we talked about was that. What happens when clients do those things, when they unalive themselves or they sabotage their case in some violent action? These things happen. They happen. And get help. Get around people. And one of the important things for me was I was always under the scrutiny. When you're a coach, you're like always hustling like a psycho, right? And so I was always selling things on, like, if you want to fix this problem in your life, fix it in a community. And what happened in that is there was always a therapeutic process in it. Before we started hardcore with all the custody stuff, we had therapists in the group. We had people talking to men about male pain that was ignored. And so when you're going through this, I get it, man. I get it. It's easy to give up. It's easy to hate everybody. It's easy to be angry. It's easy to point out all the ways that you've been wronged because you have been wronged. But you have to stay on the road to fight for your kids. You can think about moving on. That's okay. And some guys in our groups do. They have to give up. You can think about saying, F it, I'm going to move to another country. Great. We actually have a whole faction and separate subgroups that we have that our custody groups don't even know about, of how you live abroad. But it's not so you can be cool. It's not so you can run from your problems. But sometimes in this situation, you have to walk forward in a way where you cannot believe the lie. What has happened to you in this has made you a victim. You have been victimized. But it is your responsibility to move on as a human being, as a father, as a good person, as somebody who's going to take this pain, this suffering, this reality that you're in and turn it into something good. And if there has been a horrible thing that is causing now generational pain in your lineage with your kids and you, then we got to do something to fix it. In any case, guys, I hope that you get some of the free resources that I have. I hope that if you're in this, and again, as it was said by the alumni in my group, that 2-3 calls with an average attorney will get you the help you need in at this moment, the highest tier group in what I offer. That's amazing. And if you don't want to work, you can't afford it, it's going to break the bank, it's going to screw you over, I don't want you in there. But if you want something that does work, that has integrity, that's what we got. In any case, I'm going to answer some questions and make sure this botched Zoom call is actually working. All right. Not too many people on. Hey, sorry, Zoom guys, for all of that crazy stuff. I'm going to send out the email again just for the heck of it. But, dude, didn't go as planned. And for just a few moments, I'm going to answer some questions for the people on the YouTube and all that sort of stuff. One moment. But first, I'm going to say this. This is going to be one of the most dickhead things. There's some marketer friends of mine that are working with me, and I generally hate marketers because they're marketers. And they said, how many people did you have on your free call last night? And there were like 25. It was pretty cool. And they said, did you get any sales from it? I said, no. There were 2 people that are interested and all that sort of stuff. They said, you need to stop doing that, man. You're killing yourself on these things. I say, I know, but I also think it should happen. And they were like pretty insistent. You need to stop doing the free calls. But anyway, we'll see what happens. Dudes who are on the Zoom, I still have the volume down so people can't hear you. And the reason why is I'm still live streaming. I'm going to answer a couple questions on here. We'll give it like 8 minutes of Q&A on these things. And then I'll switch only to you guys. And one of the things is that I want to keep it on mute with you guys because it's live streaming and it's, you don't want the public to hear it. So let's go to YouTube. Holy shoots. Man, Dave, thanks for that. You're such a great dude. I appreciate people who donate and all that sort of stuff to the YouTube channel. It's really great. It makes me want to keep moving. Yeah. Can you give 5 minutes of your time after the live talk about child support case? Dude, come on the free call, man. Like, here's one of the things. I don't know what you have, but if you're on the free call, I can talk to you and it's that much easier. You got to be on my email list for that. Steve is the GOAT in high conflict custody battles. Well, if you got to be the GOAT at something. Okay. On TikTok, we have, I'm going to try to get my BF to join your groups. Send him the link. I wish I could send everybody the link, but go to my profile and get the link if you can. But I appreciate that. And look, man, my groups are good. They do it. It was really weird because we were on the free call. You have to be on my email list. So if on this video that you're watching on YouTube, there's a link that says like get in my free group. Click that, and that's how you do it. Okay. Thank you. We need your help. You're giving. Thank you. 3 CPS reports on their moms. BF injuries. Ex took off with the baby. It was 7 weeks old. Man. Hey, I'll say this just really quick. So I'm not sure if I fully understand the question here because there's like dialogue going on in this, but um, X took off with a baby that was 7 weeks old. He's going to be 3 next month. This is where it gets tough because there's two things that we have to understand. So we have to understand where we're at. So it's really really important when we get into custody stuff. Where you are at determines how you get to where you want to be. So where you're starting is different for everybody. If you screw this up, this is why like you can never say legal advice and all that sort of stuff, but like this is where like advice or suggestions or whatever you want to call it gets so tricky because like here's how you beat this. It really depends where you're at. You have to really, really look. Where am I at? Okay, so how do I take the steps to get here? Now, in situations like this, where there's a small child, one, most states, it's like 18 months or 2 years before they're going to let, dads have certain custodial like visitation rights. Okay, but you can inch it forward and you might need to. Now, in this, like if you're being attacked, by a high conflict woman, a personality disorder, something like that, you're taking it all personally. And really, that's just going to be, that's like as good as it gets with the judge, right? 18 months or 2 years, you're just going to get limited access. Now, I understand in this question, it's something a little bit different. But I want to say that because that's important to get. And so you want to take the baby steps forward so that when the child's 18 months or 2 years, you start getting the right overnights. Like that's the key, right? So there's that. But then also in here, where you're at is there's a huge status quo. 7 weeks to 3 years, it's basically 3 years that you have not seen the child or that this person has not seen the child. And so when that's there, you have to start looking at how do I start arguing the status quo? How do I go that? So we want to launch and go like, well, there's abuse happening, right? And there's abuse happening, but we need to understand that the court has a process, right? So when we fail to learn that and we get a bad result, we're then forced to go, the courts are corrupt and they don't work. Okay. All right. People on YouTube, thank you so much for donating. That is the coolest. People on TikTok, I don't know how you donate, but I don't know. Sign up for my stuff. If you want to somehow help fund this, buy one of my things. You'll get what you pay for. If you don't like it, I'll refund you. But TikTok, thank you so much, guys. I'm out of here. We'll be back on Sunday with a live stream. And YouTube, you know the drill. We're going to look at, I made 10 cents on TikTok. But it's for the fans. And look at that. Oh, man. My phone's blowing up. And let me post on the WhatsApp group about the Zoom action, which got totally screwed up. Here, let me do this. And YouTube, I'm going to go and I'm going to talk to the people on the Zoom call because they're sitting there waiting and they got ran through the ringer on me tonight. So we'll talk to you guys later and we'll be back on Sunday. And thanks a lot. Peace.